Most people have heard of compound interest. It gets mentioned in personal finance articles. Teachers bring it up occasionally. Someone probably told you at some point that it was important. Einstein supposedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. And yet, despite how often it gets referenced, most people have only a vague understanding of what it actually does. They know it means money grows over time. They know it has something to do with interest building on interest, and they move on. But here is what I wish someone had shown me earlier. The actual numbers, not the concept, the numbers. Because when you map out what compound interest actually does over a real timeline to real money, the gap between the people who understand this early and the people who didn't is not small. It is not a little better, it is a completely different financial life. The single biggest factor in how much compound interest works for you has nothing to do with how much money you have. It has nothing to do with how smart you are or how good your investments are. It is simply when you started. Hey, welcome to the part they skipped, the stuff they glossed over, the chapter that wasn't in the textbook, the money conversation on finance that you wish your teachers had with you. If you're new here, hit subscribe. I try to put out a new video every week, and every episode comes with a free PDF. It's the cheat sheet of everything we covered today. You can grab that in the description below. Now, before we get into it, I am not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. Everything I'm sharing here is for educational purposes only. I'm going to give you a little framework for how I think about this topic, but your situation is going to be unique. Take what makes sense, leave what doesn't, and if you're making a major financial decision, always talk to a qualified professional first. Here's what I think everyone watching this actually wants. You want to know that the decisions you make right now, today, are setting something in motion that pays off significantly later. You want to feel like time is working for you instead of against you. And you want a clear picture of what is actually possible so you can make the decision to start with. I think about a younger version of myself, and I genuinely wish someone had just sat me down and shown me these specific numbers, not the concept, but the actual math. Because the concept alone doesn't create the urgency. The numbers do. Here's what most people believe about compound interest. You need a lot of money for it to really matter. The big gains are for people who are already wealthy. If you're starting with a modest amount, the compounding effect is real, but is not going to move the needle in any dramatic way. That belief is what keeps a lot of people just waiting. Waiting until they have more to invest, waiting until the timing is better, waiting until they feel ready. But here is what is actually happening while they wait. Let me show you two people. Same income, same investment. A modest amount put into a diversified index fund every single month. The only difference is when they started. Person A starts at 22 years old. They invest consistently every month for 10 years. Then at 32, they stop completely. They never add another dollar. They just leave what they had invested and let it sit. Now, person B starts at 32 years old, exactly when person A stopped. They invest the same amount every month, but they never stop. They invest consistently for the next 30 years, all the way to 62. Person B invested for 30 years. Person A invested for 10 and then stopped completely. Who ends up with more money at 62? Person A, by a significant margin. I remember the first time someone walked me through this math, and I had to sit with it for a moment because it feels wrong. Person B invested 3 times as long, contributed far more total dollars, and still came out behind. How is that possible? It is possible because of when the clock started. Person A had 10 years of compounding before person B even began. And those early years, the ones that feel the least significant because the numbers are still small, are actually the most valuable years in the entire equation. Because every dollar compounded in year 1 is a dollar that compounds again in year 2, and year 3, and year 4. The growth builds on itself, and it builds on the growth. And it builds on the growth of the growth. The curve starts flat, almost discouragingly flat. And then at some point, it bends. And when it bends, it goes almost vertical. The people who started early are the ones sitting at the vertical part of the curve. The people who waited are still on the flat part, trying to catch up by putting in more. You cannot catch up by putting in more. You can only catch up by starting sooner. And if sooner was 10 years ago, the second best time is right now. Here's a framework that reframes how you think about starting. Most people will evaluate whether to start investing based on how much they have available. If the amount feels too small to matter, they wait. But the illusion of novelty in compound interest is this: the amount matters far less than the time. A small amount started early consistently beats a large amount started late almost every time when you run it out over a full timeline. Here's how I think about it practically. The first move is not finding the perfect investment. The first move is just starting, opening the account, making the first contribution, even if it is small. Because the clock does not start until you do. And every month the clock is not running is a month of compounding that you cannot get back. The second move is consistency over optimization. A consistent, modest contribution to a simple, low-cost index fund over a long period of time outperforms a larger, inconsistent contribution to a more complex strategy in most real-world scenarios. The people who overthink the strategy and delay starting while they figure it all out almost always come out behind. The person who started simple and stays consistent usually wins. The third move is automation. Set your contribution to happen automatically every month before you ever see the money. Automation removes the decision. When the decision is removed, the behavior comes consistent. And consistency is the only ingredient compound interest actually needs from you. I remember when I finally automated my contributions and stopped thinking about it as a monthly decision. That shift was more valuable than any investment research I had ever done before, because the research was never the bottleneck, the consistency was. So here's the action framework. Step 1, start today. Not when you have more, not when the market looks better, not when things settle down, today. Even a small amount. The amount can grow, the time cannot be recovered. Step 2, open the right account for your situation. If your employer offers a retirement plan with a match, capture the full match first. If you want to go further, open a Roth IRA. Both of these accounts let your money grow in a way that is tax advantaged, meaning compound interest works even harder inside them than in a regular account. Step 3, choose simple over complex. A low-cost, diversified index fund is where most financial educators point people who are starting out. Not because it is the most exciting option, because it's not, but because it is the most consistent over long periods of time and the fees are low enough that they do not eat into your compounding. Step 4, automate. Set it and leave it. Check it once a year. Do not watch it daily. The people who watch it daily make emotional decisions. The people who automate it and ignore it let compounding do its job without interference. Step 5, do not stop when the market drops. This is the one that trips most people up. When the market goes down and the balance on paper looks smaller, the instinct is to stop or pull out. But a market drop for someone with a long timeline is not a loss. It is a sale. You're buying the same index at a lower price. The compounding will recover. It always has historically. Stopping when the market drops is the single most effective way to permanently reduce what compound interest would have done for you. The math does not care about your motivation. It does not care about your income level. It does not care about how much you understand about investing. It only cares about 2 things, time and consistency. Give it those 2 things, and it does the rest. Apply what makes sense for your situation. That's it for today. If this helped, please hit like. It helps more people find the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already, and grab the free PDF cheat sheet in the description below. Everything we covered today, ready to save or share. This is video number 9 of 10 in our foundation series, the 10 money basics every adult should know, but most people were never taught. If you missed the last one on the real cost of minimum payments and why your balance barely moves, that one can be found right here. See you next week.